Apple TV kind of sits in this like lost cousin status of streaming services. It's often the one that people forego because the other ones are getting so expensive and you only really want to subscribe to two or three. So people often end up dropping Apple TV Plus. That's what it feels like, at least when talking to friends and family. I haven't actually looked up any numbers, which is ultimately so unfortunate because every time I've had to activate Apple TV Plus to catch a good show, because I will watch anything as long as it's good, but also I'll take advantage of any free trial. You buy an Apple Watch, they give you something. You buy a phone, they give you something. I'll use those times to really try to catch up on the catalog on there because it seems like a lot of stuff that they have are really good. Right now, I'm into Severance, and previously I watched Ted Lasso, or it's the morning show, and one that I've been meaning to watch is Silo. They also have some suites of movies, like I wanted to see Wolves, the one with Brad Pitt and George Clooney. It seems like every time I choose something from that platform, it ends up actually being surprisingly pretty good. It's well produced. There seems to be a really similar like cinematic language between all of it, but like it's shot in a very like clean Apple polish way. Something that you would used to think like David Fincher did, but kind of applied to the whole platform in general. Something that I'm really enjoying right now and that I would love to just gush about is Shrinking. I am absolutely in love with the show. It's bringing back a lot of the like warm, cozy, comfortable feelings that Ted Lasso really did, but even more grounded than that. The premise of the show starts like a year after a therapist's wife died. They have a kid together, and he's really just trying to manage that while being a therapist. So on one end, it's really interesting to see that trope of like, here's a guy that's supposed to be helping a lot of people, and at the same time, his life is pretty screwed up. There's a genuineness to the way that the characters are written that it slowly reveals that all the characters are like that. All the characters are kind of this like really human, super layered, complete person that's a believable person. And there's all these like little nuances. And I think the thing that it does really well is that it shows these layers through how characters interact with other characters. So a lot of times it'll just be like, pick two characters and put them in a scene together. And the way that they interact with each other exclusively is like a special bond that those two have together. So maybe a character is really vulnerable with one, but really mean and defensive to another. And you kind of like are able to kind of build a complete vision of who a character is without them being the same person to everybody, like you would be in real life. I'm so obsessed with the show. It's one of the shows that, a lot like Ted Lasso, was one that I won't shut up about, even though nobody wants to watch it. And if they've watched it, they've also been obsessed like me and are already kept up to the furthest season. So now I'm stuck in the middle. I've only completed the first season of Shrinking, and I know there's a whole second season that's, I think, almost about to complete, if not complete already, that I'm very excited to see. I'm trying to pace myself, but that pacing myself still ends up being like 3 episodes a day. And there's only like 10 to 12 episodes a season, so that's not very slow. As I've gotten older, I realize I really like slice of life things. Like as more and more problems come up in my life, and as I've been dealing with them head on, I just find it so much more relatable to watch these small stakes play out. It brings out a lot of emotion in me. And it's just that like whole idea of you just got to get through the day, and having that be shown to you, and that in a lot of ways, we live in a pretty lonely society now, right? So it's nice to have shows that remind you that everybody goes through things, that everybody's superhuman. And if I talk about this too much, I can feel myself starting to cry, which is to say, this show does make me tear up or cry pretty often. Ted Lasso, when I watched that, it like made me want to be a better person. It made me want to try to be a better leader. It showed me, and even though it's fiction, there are ways that you can implement that to encourage a team instead of, punching down or micromanaging or forcing them. It's about bringing the best out of everybody. And I think Shrinking kind of carries this message of like pushing forward anyway, despite obstacles that you might be facing, that all of us have in some weird way. Another thing that I absolutely love about this show is that the writing is so like spot on and tight. It seems like there's really no wasted fluff anywhere. Every scene that happens seems to progress the character or tells you something about them in some way. Everything. It always moves the needle little by little, and it does it in such a tight structure. There's never a wasted moment, and it tends to blend this like comedy and emotional depth and character growth in just this crazy condensed form. And it's just so smooth in execution that like you can't help but just be completely engrossed in it. It's also just incredibly funny. I haven't found myself belly laughing to a show like this in a really long time. And even that itself is such a high praise and so refreshing. And in that balance of all that stuff, it's what makes it so engrossing. It's that it's never one note. It's never trying to be just all sad. It's a complete blend constantly of like, it's happy, it's emotional, you're dealing with grief. And there's this delicate balance between all of it that gives it like a really rich soul. It's both heartfelt and super messed up at the same time, and it's shot in such like a super warm and cozy way that it almost takes the bite out of like the really emotional stuff, but not that it doesn't hit you. It's just that that's what normal life looks like. It's normal lighting. It could you could be warm and dealing with something completely traumatizing. And the sound and the music kind of supports that. It's we're dealing. I love all the characters. I love that it's not really what they seem when they're first presented to you. You think that they could be pretty one note, but slowly as the show goes on, they kind of unravel like what mistakes they all made, where they're good, where they're bad. And nothing's ever huge and dramatic. It's just small moments. But the way that they tell those small moments, a lot of the show doesn't tell itself in like a this is what happens and everything is over. It's like, wow, I really messed up. How do I keep going forward? Which I think is a really good message to send to people. The whole arc of Jason Segel's character is so well done. It's so messy, but it's handled with care and humor. And the idea that like therapists going through so much kind of maybe makes people want to go to therapy more because I don't know, maybe there's a perception that like when you're a therapist, you have everything locked in and together. But to be able to convey that, like, no, even though these people give advice for their job, they actually go through their own stuff too, but they don't bring that with them. I can't wait for season two. I really just want to spread this somehow and hope that it hits anybody. It makes you, if it makes one person go and watch the show, I would be super happy. It's just a little bit unfortunate that it's on Apple TV Plus. I claimed a free month of Apple One in order to watch Severance. And kind of on the way, I saw that Shrinking was there. And I remember watching an episode a long time ago because it was free. I think first episodes on Apple TV Plus are free. And I kind of never got back to it, but it sparked something in me that I wanted to go back in. And I'm super glad I did. And yeah, please see this show. That's all I got today. See ya.